Hello viewers, how are you all? So today we are going to study the brain, the most complex structure of our body. How intriguing it is to study about the brain. जब मैं ब्रेन पढ़ती थी तब मुझे हमेशा ऐसा लगता था कि क्या होगा ब्रेन में, कैसे काम करता है ब्रेन एंड एक्सेट्रा. So today I am going to decode all your questions you ever had in your mind about brain. But for that, you have to keep your brains on and understand the topic well. So let's start with the broader concept of what is brain and what are different parts. So brain is also called as nervous system. Brain has high amount of neurons which will connect many neurons together and transfer the messages that they receive. Brain is divided into two parts, the CNS and the PNS. In today's topic, we will be studying CNS as the main core of the topic. So what is CNS? CNS is called as the central nervous system, and second division of the brain is called as peripheral nervous system. So central is something which is lying in the center of the body, brain in the center, and again the spinal cord in the center. Now, periphery is something which is away from the body, which is not located in the center. So peripheral nervous system is away from the body and central nervous system in the center of the body. So central nervous system comprises of two things, the brain and the spinal cord. The brain is where all the calculations, all the decision making, all the planning, all the memory takes place, and spinal cord is where the exchange of messages takes place. The peripheral nervous system is again further divided into autonomic nervous system and a somatic nervous system. Autonomic nervous system is further divided into parasympathetic and sympathetic systems. Now, what is parasympathetic and sympathetic? Sympathetic is something that will increase your heart rate, increase. So it is called as fight or flight sympathetic system. Sympathetic system will increase your heart rate, your functions, your working of the body, and etc. Whereas parasympathetic is something which will decrease, which will soothe down, which will calm down your nerves, your muscles, everything that is working in your body. So when the sympathetic is on, it is very important that parasympathetic is released side by side. Moving ahead, now, moving ahead further with the divisions of the central nervous system, we know that the brain is divided into three parts, the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brainstem, which includes the midbrain, the pons, and the medulla oblongata. The central nervous system is made up of brain, spinal cord, and it constitutes about 1/5 of the body weight. And it lies within the cranial cavity. Now, what is cranial cavity? So, जब बंगाली बाबा का स्कल हम लोग देखते हैं, जिसमें तांत्रिक मांत्रिक होता है, the whole thing is called as skull, but जो स्कल के ऊपर का पोर्शन होता है, this area, this is called as cranial cavity, जहाँ पे हमारा brain situated है. And the brain is again divided into three parts as we talked about, the cerebrum, the brainstem, that is midbrain, pons, and medulla oblongata, and the cerebellum. So, my dear friends, can you see this picture where we see that the brain has been divided into three parts? The forebrain, which can also be divided into telencephalon and diencephalon, the midbrain, which is also called as mesencephalon, and the hindbrain. The hindbrain is something which is present at the back of your head. It's called as hindbrain, which can also be called as metencephalon and diencephalon. Diencephalon is present in the center, at the core of the brain. And this rest of the portion is called as forebrain, the hindbrain, and the midbrain. We'll further see how the forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain are divided. So, everything that is important should be protected. And just like that, even the brain, which is the most important structure of body, it also needs the protection. It also needs some covering. So the covering of the brain is called as meninges. And our brain has three coverings, which is called as the dura mater, the arachnoid matter, or the pia mater. These three are the coverings of the brain which will help the brain to be secured and be protected from any external injury or trauma. Now, can you see this is the pia mater, the first layer which will protect the brain. The second is the arachnoid matter and the dura mater. Now, can you see the space between the first and the second and the third? So, the space between the dura and arachnoid matter is called as subdural matter, whereas the space between the arachnoid and the pia matter is called as subarachnoid matter. So in total, we have 5 things when we talk of brain. 5 layers covering the brain and protecting it from any external injuries. Yes. So what's the time? It's the time for the fun fact. So we have 3 hormones in the body called as dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. Dopamine is also called as the happy hormone. So when you're happy, the dopamine is released in your body. High amount of dopamine will actually be released when you're happy, when you see a movie, when you go out, when you're with your friends, and etc. And the second hormone is a serotonin. Serotonin is something which will help building the relationship with the people, how you talk to people, how you interact with the people. And again, oxytocin is the trust hormone of how we trust people, of how we bond with people, and etc. So remember, all these things are high when you're really happy, and I hope you will be happy when you see these videos and your dopamine level will be high. Going ahead with the next part of the brain, which is called as the cerebrum. Cerebrum is the largest part of the brain, the first largest part of the brain. It occupies the anterior and the middle cranial fossa. Cerebrum is made up of 2 cerebral hemispheres and their cortices, the outer layer of the gray matter and the underlying regions of the white matter. Also, remember one thing, the brain is also called as cranium. Okay, so the brain is made up of 2 cerebral hemispheres and their cortices. So if you can see this picture, this is made up of the gray matter. We will see further in the video how does the gray and white color is imparted in the brain or in the spinal cord. So the cerebral cortex is the outer covering of the gray matter over the hemispheres. So always remember when we talk of cerebrum, cerebrum is the first largest part of the brain, and we'll see the functions of the brain accordingly. So the middle cranial fossa. I hope you understand that the brain is also called as cranium and it is therefore called as middle cranial fossa. So I hope you understand the situation, that how it is positioned in the body. So brain, that is cerebrum, is situated in the central part of the cranium. Now, each hemisphere of cerebrum is divided into lobes, which take the names of the bone of the cranium under which they lie. For example, the frontal, example, the frontal, the parietal, the temporal, and the occipital. If you can understand this picture, that this, the center part, so this is going to be the part to which the person faces. This is the front part. So this is called as the frontal lobe. Front part. This is the central sulcus. Now, what is a sulcus? As we all know, that brain is a very complex structure with lots of gyri and sulci present. Now, what is gyri and what is sulci? So, gyri is when something is bulged out. If you can see this, bulged out parts, these. Whereas sulci means these deep breaks in that thing. This is called as sulci. So gyri and sulci. Sulci and gyri are present in the brain to increase your memory power, and the boundaries of the lobes of the cerebrum are marked by the deep sulci, that is also called as fissures, and these are the central, lateral, and the parieto-occipital sulcus. Now pay attention that this is the central sulcus, which helps dividing the frontal lobe and the parietal lobe into the two parts. Then we have a parietal occipital sulcus, which will divide the frontal lobe, the temporal lobe from the occipital lobe. And this lastly is the lateral sulcus, which will help dividing the frontal portion and the temporal portion. So there are three sulcuses: the lateral sulcus, the central sulcus, and the parieto-occipital sulcus, which will help in division of the brain. The four divisions that we're talking about: the frontal, the parietal, the temporal, and the occipital. Yes. So very importantly, let's see. So हम सब हेडफोन सुनते हैं, हेडफोन्स पे गाने सुनना हम सबको पसंद है, right? So the place where headphones is situated, here, this, here is the temporal lobe, here is the frontal lobe, and in between the temporal and the frontal lobe, we have the parietal lobe, and lastly, at the back of the head, where Dabang puts his chashma, is called as the occipital lobe. Now, the frontal lobe has the function of planning. So when we go out to watch a movie, if you want to go out with a friend, what to talk, what not to talk, what to study, or to study or not, is also planned by the frontal lobe. The decision making is very important part of the frontal lobe. So whatever decisions that even you watching this video is one of the decisions. The decision making is again concerned with the frontal lobe. And short term memories. जो भी हमें दोस्त बोलते हैं, हम सुनते हैं, थोड़ी देर के लिए याद रखते हैं और फिर भूल जाते हैं. इस मेमोरी को बेसिकली कहाँ कंसर्न्ड है? फ्रंटल लोब के साथ. नेक्स्ट कम्स द टेम्पोरल लोब, जहाँ पे हम हेडफोन सुनते हैं, द टेम्पोरल पार्ट. तो टेम्पोरल पार्ट में क्या है? अगेन द हेडफोन थिंग. सो वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट इज द हियरिंग. सेकेंड इज द लैंग्वेज. हम सब एक लैंग्वेज घर पे बोलते हैं, एक लैंग्वेज दोस्तों के साथ बोलते हैं और एक लैंग्वेज टीचर्स के साथ बोलते हैं, जो बहुत अलग होती है दोनों से. सो दैट लैंग्वेज, दैट हियरिंग, एंड वेरी 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 इंपॉर्टेंटली लॉन्ग टर्म मेमोरी. जो भी लॉन्ग टर्म मेमोरीज हमारे में होती है, लाइक व्हाट वी स्टडी, हमें कुछ फ़ोन नंबर्स हमेशा याद रहते हैं. वो अपने मॉम के हो, हमारे डैड के हो, जो शायद सालों तक चेंज ना हुए हो या हुए भी हो, फिर भी हमें मॉम डैड के फ़ोन नंबर्स हमेशा याद रहते हैं. मॉम डैड के फ़ोन नंबर्स, कुछ हमारे आसपास के होर्डिंग्स, कुछ हमारे टेक्स्ट बुक के पिक्चर्स या हमारे आंसर्स जो हमें हमेशा याद रहते हैं, वो हमेशा लॉन्ग टर्म मेमोरी में टेम्पोरल लोब के साथ जुड़ जाते हैं. सो टेम्पोरल लोब हैज़ प्लानिंग, the temporal lobe has hearing, the language means we also study new languages when we come to the adulthood. New languages come to our way, so new language or the language that we already know, uska perception ka help bhi kaun karta hai? Temporal lobe. Next comes the parietal lobe, which is situated in between the parietal fossa, the frontal lobe and the temporal lobe. So the parietal lobe has sensory integration and proprioception. सेंसरी इंटीग्रेशन मतलब जो भी हम देखते हैं सुनते हैं, जो 5 सेंस ऑर्गन्स है हमारे, टच, टेस्ट, स्मेल, आईसाइट, ये सबका कोऑर्डिनेशन या ये सबकी मेमोरी कौन करता है? द पैराइटल लोब. The next we have is the occipital lobe, which is present at the back of the head, and that's why, just to remember, always remember दबंग का चश्मा कि वो पीछे लगाता था, so that you will understand कि पीछे, the पीछे वाला जो brain है उसका function is the sight, that is the vision that we see. जो हम देखते हैं वो हमेशा ज़्यादा याद रहता है. Visual presentations are more better remembered. So that is always concerned with the occipital lobe. So after clearing the frontal, parietal, temporal and occipital lobe के function, let's see what we have next. The most important part, as we all know, that the brain is divided into two parts, the left side and the right side. And as you can see, the right side is more colorful, a very, very intriguing picture, whereas the left side is boring, mathematical picture, where we can see that the left side is more concerned with the analytical thought, the detailed orientation, the perception, the order sequencing, the rational thought, verbal cautiousness, the planning, maths and science, the logic, the right-fielded vision, the right side motor skills, and etc. Now, as you understand that left side is more of an engineering वाला side, जो हमेशा maths और ये सब चीजों से ज़्यादा concerned होगा, या maybe the scientist से concerned होगा. I want you all to understand this thing, that वो left sided होके भी हमेशा right field के vision को control करेगा या right sided motor skills को control करेगा. Now what does that mean? As the brain is divided into two parts, the left and the right, you need to understand the left side का जो brain है वो हमेशा right side की movements control करेगा, and जो right side का brain है वो left side के portions को कंट्रोल करेगा. तो जो भी एक्शंस हम राइट हैंडेडली रहते हैं, इट इज एक्चुअली कंसर्न्ड विद द लेफ्ट ब्रेन, एंड जो भी हम लेफ्ट साइड से बोलते हैं, इट इज एक्चुअली कंसर्न्ड विद द राइट ब्रेन. सो इट इज अ क्रॉस और अ वाइस वर्सा कोऑर्डिनेशन. Coming to the functions or the works of the right-sided brain, it is very artistic. So we have intuitive thoughts, the holistic perception, the random sequences, the emotional thoughts, the non-verbal adventures, the impulse creative writing, imagination, left-fielded vision, and the left-sided motor skills. So again, as we discussed, the right left को control करेगा, left right को control करेगा. So अगर जो हम इसको साइंटिस्ट बोल रहे हैं तो इसको हम लोग राइटर, एक्टर्स, डांसर्स, जो भी आर्ट फील्ड है, जो भी आर्ट में अच्छे से कर सकता है, उसका हम बोलते हैं कि राइट साइडेड ब्रेन ज्यादा चलता है. और जो बहुत एनालिटिकल, बहुत ही परफेक्शनिस्ट होता है, इट इज मोस्टली ऑफ राइट साइडेड ब्रेन. Okay, now going ahead, we have the next part, which is called as the brain stem. So when I talk of the brain stem, I want you all to remember the movie Drishyam part 1. If you have seen it and if you remember, उसकी mom rod लेती है और उस लड़के को पीछे मारती है, right ear. She takes the rod and hit him hard. अगर जो उसने उसको फ्रंट पे मारा होता तो वो शायद ऑन द स्पॉट मरता नहीं, but she hit her hard at the back of the head, where he dies on the spot, which means the brain stem includes three important structures: midbrain, the pons, and the medulla oblongata, which has the vital functions like respiration, the vision, the functioning of heart, the pumping of the heart. It is mostly taken care by the brain stem. इसलिए जब दृश्य में उसकी मम्मी उसको जोर से पीछे डंडा मारती है तब वो ऑन द स्पॉट मर जाता है, बिकॉज पीछे हमारे वाइटल ऑर्गन्स या वाइटल फंक्शंस ऑफ द बॉडी प्रेजेंट होते हैं. Now, when the baby is small, if you ever had a small baby or brother or a neighbor around you, a small baby, we always have been said कि उसको सर पे मत मार या उसका सर संभाल के रख. Why? Because it is very important to take care of the brain, and especially हम हिंदी में या मराठी में इसको छोटा मेंदू भी बोलते हैं. It is very important to take care of your important functions. Now, brain stem. the midbrain, the pons and medulla oblongata. ये क्या करता है? ये तीन चीजों का मिक्सचर है, इसलिए हमको एक important organ देगा, which is called as the brain stem. It is a stem-like part. Can you see this is a stem? हमेशा वो rose के नीचे वाला जो stem होता है, kind of a structure, and stem-like part of the base of the brain that is connected to the spinal cord. So if you can see this structure will further continue down to the spinal. This structure is responsible for the basic vital means important life functions such as breathing, heartbeat, and blood pressure. Medulla oblongata directly controls the breathing, the blood flow, and the other functions. And that's why now we know कि हमारा brain stem या हमारा midbrain, pons और medulla oblongata हमारे लिए क्यों important. So again we'll see कि ये structure responsible है basic vital functions like breathing, heartbeat and blood pressure. Breathing, which is connected to lungs, heartbeat, heart. Medulla oblongata is directly controls breathing, directly breathing को control करता है. तो medulla oblongata को कुछ भी होता है तो उसका first असर किस पे दिखेगा? Respiration पे या अपने breathing पे, and blood flow and other essential functions. Going ahead with the cerebellum, the second largest part of the brain. Cerebellum is situated behind the pons and immediately below the posterior portion of the cerebellum. It is ovoid shape and it has two hemispheres separated by a narrow median strip called as vermis. एक narrow strip है vermis करके जो इस cerebellum को divide करता है. Now, the functions of the cerebellum. We saw the functions of cerebrum. और cerebrum के functions हम लोग ने 4 parts में divide किए. The frontal part, the temporal part, the parietal part, and the occipital part. Mostly decision making, memory, long-term memory, short-term memory, the vision, the eyesight, the hearing, ये सब हम लोग ने देखा cerebellum में, cerebrum में, and now we'll see the functions of the cerebellum. So the cerebellum is concerned with a coordinated voluntary muscular movement. Now coordinated means what? When we walk with 2 legs, it has a coordinated function, a coordinated movement which will help us to move ahead. Voluntary मतलब क्या? हमारी इच्छा से जब हम चलते हैं, इच्छा से. तो voluntary muscular movements, the posture जब हम खड़े रहते हैं, the balance, जैसे मैं खड़ी हूँ तो मैं गिर नहीं रही हूँ ना यहाँ, तो एक balance है. तो ये कौन मेंटेन करेगा? cerebellum. It coordinates activities associated with the maintenance of the balance and the equilibrium of the whole body. Now what is equilibrium? अगर जब बहुत जोर से हवा भी आ जाए तो भी हमारी ह्यूमन बॉडी इतनी स्ट्रांग है कि हम उड़ नहीं जाएंगे उस हवा के साथ. That is because we have that stability, we have that equilibrium in the body जो आसपास के situations के साथ adapt करेगी. Now, it also is involved in a certain cognitive function such as language. Language वाला part हम लोग ने cerebrum में भी देखा था और cerebellum में भी language आएगा. यहाँ पे अगर जो language का meaning ऐसा है कि अगर जो cerebrum में कुछ problem हो जाता है तो हमारी speech में problem आ जाएंगी. Like ये वाले जो problems है, it is mostly concerned with the language of the cerebellum. जो हम बोलते हैं ना कि हमें समझ नहीं आ रहा है तुम क्या बोल रहे हो, उस वाले कंडीशन को यहाँ पे कंसर्न है. Now cerebellum plays a major role in adapting or fine tuning motor programs to make accurate movements and through the trial and error processes. Basically cerebellum is the one जो थोड़ा risk taking वाला section है जो हमें help करेगा of what to do and what not to do. And the last and the most important thing, damage to the cerebellum. अगर जो cerebellum को कोई damage हो जाता है, it will result in the clumsy, uncoordinated muscular movements, staggering gait. Now, what is a staggering gait? Imagine कोई drunkard इंसान, कोई इंसान पी के आया है, तो वो कैसे चलेगा? एक साइड पे चलेगा या randomly ऐसे गिरता पड़ता हुआ चलेगा. तो that gait is called as a staggering gait. and inability to carry out smooth, steady and a precise movement. ये सारे functions हमें तब दिखेंगे जब कोई पी के आया है. That is when a person is intoxicated with alcohol. When a person is intoxicated with alcohol या जब इंसान ने alcohol पिया होता है तब उसका first action हमेशा हमको किधर दिखेगा? Cerebellum पे, which will slow down the activities of the brain, which will not help that person to think in the right way, walk in the right way, or talk in the right way. Now, we have completed the three divisions of the brain. That was cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brainstem, which included pons, medulla oblongata, and the hindbrain. Now, let's see the next part, which is called as the spinal cord, the divisions of the central nervous system. The spinal cord is continuous above with the medulla oblongata. We saw कि ऊपर का जो पीछे वाला जो portion है, the hind brain वाला portion, it continues further with the help of spinal cord. It is a long, thin bundle of a nervous tissues, and it is approximately 45 centimeter long in an adult Caucasian male, and it is about thickness of the little finger. So if you can see the little finger, इतना thick होता है हमारा spinal cord, but still it has a very, very, very important function of transporting messages from the organ to the brain and to the organ to the other organs to take the particular action. Now, spinal cord receives and transmits the electric signal throughout the body. So basically, I've noticed that the people are very confused कि स्पाइनल कॉर्ड क्या है और वर्टेब्रल कॉलम क्या है. हमेशा ये दो चीज या ये दो वर्ड्स के बीच में कंफ्यूजन होता है. सो जस्ट टू क्लियर दिस कंफ्यूजन, स्पाइनल कॉर्ड इज द नर्वस सप्लाई. कैन यू सी, ये पूरी नर्व्स पूरी बॉडी में हर जगह पास हो रही है. ये क्या है? द नर्व सप्लाई. और ये नर्व सप्लाई क्या करेगा? बेसिकली जो भी मैसेज है या जो भी इंफॉर्मेशन जो ब्रेन देता है पूरे बॉडी को, ये नर्व्स उसको कैरी करेंगे. सो नर्वस सिस्टम या द स्पाइनल कॉर्ड, इट इज मोर कंसर्न्ड विद द नर्व्स. एंड व्हेन वी टॉक ऑफ द वर्टेब्रल कॉलम, you see this, the vertebral column, this is made up of bones. It is a hard structure. This protects the spinal. So if you see, ये vertebral column जो है ये हमारे बैक को एक शेप देता है. ठीक है, gives shape to the body, also protects the spinal cord, and vertebral column के अंदर वाले पोर्शन से स्पाइनल कॉर्ड पास होता है. स्पाइनल कॉर्ड बहुत हाईली नर्व सप्लाइड स्ट्रक्चर है जिसको हमें बहुत प्रोटेक्ट करके रखना पड़ता है, बिकॉज इवन अ माइन्यूट इंजरी टू द स्पाइनल कॉर्ड कैन कॉज बिग प्रॉब्लम लाइक पैरालिसिस एंड एक्सेट्रा. सो अगर जो इन नर्व्स को कुछ हो गया तो वी कांट अफोर्ड दैट, और इसलिए इस नर्व को प्रोटेक्ट करने के लिए वी हैव अ बोनी स्ट्रक्चर कॉल्ड एज वर्टेब्रल column. And I hope the difference between the two is cleared now. Moving ahead, with the next part, मैंने बोला था ना कि हम लोग ग्रे मैटर और वाइट मैटर क्या है ये समझेंगे. तो लेट्स सी दैट फर्स्ट. तो हम सबको स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ न्यूरॉन बहुत अच्छे से पता है, but still let's give a quick revision. So if you can see, this is the whole neuron. And this is the cell body, these are the dendrites, जहाँ से हम messages receive करते हैं, जहाँ से message receive होते हैं, and it passes through the axon and further released in the axon terminal. ये जो axon या ये जो cell body है, this is of which color? This is of a gray color. ये जो cell body है वो grey color की है, and if you see the axon part, this is of a white color. So this impart color not in the brain but also in the spinal cord, the gray matter and the white matter. Okay, so if you can see यहाँ से impulse आता है which is the axon terminal और next dendrite में जाता है. This is the cell body and the dendrites, and the messages are forwarded in this. Moving ahead. So now that we have understood what is the white matter and what is the gray matter, you need to understand कि spinal cord के अंदर ये जो है central part, can you see this forms an H-shaped structure. This H-shaped structure is present in the spinal cord और ये H-shaped structure gray matter से बना हुआ है, which means सारे cell body इधर है और axon terminal बाहर है. Cell body इधर और ये बाहर. This is the structure and arrangement of the gray and the white matter. Now spinal cord क्या करता है? Spinal cord के पास बहुत सारे nerves है, तो वो क्या करता है? They are grouped into the bundles of the nerve fibers that travel in two pathways. Spinal cord में जो passage of information है वो दो pathways से होती है. One is called as the ascending nerve tract that carries the sensory information from the body to the brain. Ascending, ऊपर ले जाना. तो वो क्या करता है कि सपोज मैंने कुछ टच किया तो उसका इंफॉर्मेशन ब्रेन को देगा, असेंड करेगा टुवर्ड्स द ब्रेन, एंड द डिसेंडिंग नर्व ट्रैक विल सेंड इंफॉर्मेशन अबाउट द मोटर फंक्शन फ्रॉम द ब्रेन टू द रेस्ट ऑफ द बॉडी. तो दो चीज है, एक है जो असेंड करती है और एक है जो डिसेंड करती है. ओके, विल सी द फर्दर थिंग्स. We saw the structure of neuron. Now coming to the white matter, जो हम लोग ने बोला ना कि जो H-shaped structure के बाहर वाला part है वो क्या है? The white matter. They are highways for the nerve impulses. Nerve impulse propagation. Now sensory input travels along these tracks towards the brain, and efferent neurons, the motor output travels from the brain along these tracks towards the skeletal muscle and other effector tissue called as efferent neuron. बहुत बड़बड़ हो गई. We'll see that in further. The gray matter जो हम लोग ने बोला, the H-shaped structure था spinal cord में, they receive and they integrate the incoming and outgoing information. Basically gray matter क्या करता है? Gray matter करता है सब record कि कौन आ रहा है और कौन जा रहा है. Okay, now let's talk about the white matter. So can you see these are the efferent nerves. This is the control center. Can you see the H-shaped structure यहाँ पे? This is nothing but the gray matter जो याद रखता है कि कौन आया और कौन. This is the efferent. So efferent को कैसे याद रखोगे? तो A for efferent and A for arrive. A for arrive. आ रहा है. A efferent arrive means क्या करेगा? कोई भी चीज का मैसेज या कोई भी चीज का इनपुट आएगा एंड वो क्या करेगा? इट विल टेक, आएगा, अराइव करेगा टू द ब्रेन एंड देन इफरेंट मतलब क्या? ई फॉर इफरेंट एंड ई फॉर एग्जिट. तो ब्रेन में वो मैसेज जो लेके आएगा, द एफरेंट नर्व अराइव करेगा, वो उसको प्रोसेस करेगा, अभी आगे क्या करना है ये सोचेगा और बॉडी से एग्जिट करेगा विद द हेल्प ऑफ इफरेंट नर्व्स. And here lies in between the control center, which is also called as association center. जो messages आ रहे हैं, जो messages जा रहे हैं, उसका डिटेल भी रखेगा, उसको रिकॉर्ड भी करेगा एंड आगे क्या करना है ये भी इसमें सब प्लान होगा. Now, can you see this? उसको गरम लग रहा है हाथ पे, मैसेजेस पास हो चुके हैं ब्रेन पे, ब्रेन ने एसोसिएट किया और फटाफट इफरेंट न्यूरॉन के थ्रू उसको एग्जिट किया. नाउ लेट्स सी दैट वंस अगेन. उसने हाथ हटा दिया. नाउ हाथ लाया, उसको गरम लगा, he felt hot, the messages arrived with the help of efferent neurons and then यहाँ पे कुछ associate हुआ in the control center. associate होने के बाद यहाँ पे ये exit हो रहा है with the help of efferent neurons जैसे यहाँ पे एसोसिएट होता है, वो कुछ सिग्नल देता है, इफरेंट न्यूरॉन्स एग्जिट मैसेज लेके बाहर जाते हैं, वो उसका अपना हाथ हटा लेते हैं. So this was the basic understanding of how efferent neurons play a role and how the control center and association center plays role in what to do next. Now, we have always talked कि हमारी बॉडी में एक इलेक्ट्रिक करंट है, इलेक्ट्रिक इम्पल्स, राइट? तो है, सच में है, एंड केमिकल इम्पल्सेस. सो जो भी मैसेजेस हमारे पूरे ब्रेन में या हमारे बॉडी में सर्कुलेट होते हैं, इट इज विद द हेल्प ऑफ इलेक्ट्रोकेमिकल इम्पल्सेस. हम हमेशा ये स्ट्रक्चर देख के ऑफन कंफ्यूज हो जाते हैं कि ये हमेशा इलेक्ट्रिक वे में काम करता है. तो अगर जो सिर्फ इलेक्ट्रिक में काम करता है तो इसका नाम होना चाहिए था इलेक्ट्रिकल इम्पल्सेस, बट इट इज नॉट सो. इट इज कॉल्ड एज इलेक्ट्रोकेमिकल इम्पल्सेस. ना पे अटेंशन, जब हम बात करते हैं कि इलेक्ट्रो मतलब क्या, जब यहाँ पे मैसेज रिसीव होता है न्यूरॉन्स को, तब केमिकल फॉर्म में होता है. तो रिसीविंग इज इन द फॉर्म ऑफ केमिकल, और जब वो सेल्फ ट्रेवल कर रहा है, दिस विल बी इन द फॉर्म ऑफ इलेक्ट्रिक. ये यहाँ पे जो है ना, यू कैन सी ए करंट चेंज हो रहा है while it is coming down, while the messages are coming down. तो the self transport या self traveling is in the electric form. जैसे ही वो एक्सॉन टर्मिनल पे जाता है दूसरे न्यूरॉन के पास, तो ये एक न्यूरॉन है, ये दूसरा न्यूरॉन है. Always remember the space between the two neurons is called as synapse. दो न्यूरॉन के बीच के जंक्शन को हम बोलेंगे synapse, and this junction is called as a neuromuscular junction. तो यहाँ पे आया इलेक्ट्रिक इम्पल्स एक्सॉन से, और ये गया नेक्स्ट न्यूरॉन के पास इन द फॉर्म ऑफ केमिकल्स. सो इलेक्ट्रोकेमिकल इम्पल्स, सेल्फ ट्रैवलिंग इलेक्ट्रिक फॉर्म में, दो न्यूरॉन के बीच में केमिकल फॉर्म, तो इलेक्ट्रोकेमिकल इम्पल्स. Now, the last part of the video, which is called as CSF, the cerebrospinal fluid. हमारा brain, average human weight of the adult male is 1336 gram, and for the female is 1198 gram. With the increasing age, the brain weight decreases by 2.7 gram in the male and 2.2 gram in the female per year. तो अगर जो तुम्हारा बॉयफ्रेंड, तुम्हारे पति, तुम्हारा भाई अगर तुम्हारी बर्थ डेट्स भूल रहे हैं ना, तो लेट्स नॉट ब्लेम देम. ऑल्सो नाउ कमिंग टू सेरेब्रोस्पाइनल फ्लूइड. सेरेब्रोस्पाइनल फ्लूइड एक ऐसा फ्लूइड है जो हमारे ब्रेन को बेसिकली फ्लोट करता है इन द स्कल. ठीक है, वरना इतना हैवी वेट हमको फील क्यों नहीं होता हमारे स्कल पे या हमारे टॉप ऑफ द हेड पे. एक्चुअली देखने जाए तो बहुत हैवी है ना. तो होता क्या है, जो फ्लूइड है ना, वो हमारे ब्रेन को फ्लोट करता है, वेरी लाइट, जिसकी वजह से हमको कि ब्रेन का वेट फील ही नहीं होता है. एंड ऑलवेज रिमेंबर, क्लियर फ्लूइड, slightly alkaline fluid with specific gravity of 1.005, consisting of water, mineral salts, glucose, plasma protein, small amounts of albumin, globulin, creatinine, and urea, and few leukocytes. Basically, CSF is very important for the brain, and it provides oxygen to the brain. So the functions of the cerebrospinal fluid are: it protects the brain and the spinal cord. It maintains the pressure around these delicate structures. So as we know that brain is a very delicate structure, तो इन सब के बीच में फ्रिक्शन अवॉइड करना या इन सब के बीच में कोई भी ट्रॉमा अवॉइड करना, तो CSF क्या करेगा, इसको प्रिवेंट करेगा. इट एक्ट्स एज अ कुशन. किसमें काम करेगा, कुशन की तरह एक्ट करेगा, एक सूदिंग इफेक्ट देगा ब्रेन को. शॉक अब्जॉर्बर है बिटवीन द ब्रेन एंड द क्रेनियल बोन्स. तो अगर जो हमारे ब्रेन में इतना सारा इलेक्ट्रिक इम्पल्स है, तो इट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट ना कि हमारे पास कुछ शॉक अब्जॉर्बर भी हो टू प्रिवेंट शॉक. तो क्या करेगा, CSF या द सेरेब्रोस्पाइनल फ्लूइड इज द वन which will help in preventing the shock. and the brain spinal cord moist, and there may be interchange of the substances between the CSF and the nerve cells such as nutrients and the waste products. तो CSF क्या करेगा? Exchange of the products में help करेगा within the brain and the spinal. Now, as promised earlier, the last but not the least, we have a fun fact. Neurons. Now, what are mirror neurons? जब तुम बैठोगे ना अपने दोस्तों के साथ, तो जो तुम्हारा दोस्त करता है ना, हम सबकॉन्शियसली वो करना शुरू कर देते हैं. अगर जो हंसता है तो हम हंस देते हैं, अगर जो रोता है तो शायद, अगर जो इमोशनल है तो हम रो भी देंगे, अगर जो जोर जोर से तालियां बजा रहा है तो हम भी शुरू कर देंगे. सो दिस इज कॉल्ड एज रिफ्लेक्शन. जो सामने वाला कर रहा है वो हम करना शुरू कर देते हैं. If someone is smiling, we start smiling, and this all is controlled by nothing but the mirror neurons. And thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed. And आपका ब्रेज ऑफ है नहीं हुआ.